welcome to Rising. Thank you for starting off your week with us. I'm joined today by Batya Ungar-Sargon. Batya, it's wonderful to see you.
Thanks, Robby. Great to be here with you.
Well, another Norfolk Southern train derailed near Springfield, Illinois on Saturday evening. Officials say the affected cabs were not carrying hazardous materials. The cause of the accident is unknown, pending an investigation from the Federal Railroad Administration. Now, this comes only weeks after Norfolk Southern derailment disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. Angry residents confronted company executives on the matter during a town hall event on Friday after the railway skipped an earlier town hall last month. Let's watch.
We are sorry. We're very sorry. We feel horrible about it.
For the first time since the toxic train derailment on February 3rd, East Palestine getting a public apology from Norfolk Southern. At Thursday night's town hall, residents peppered government officials and the railroad company with their questions.
If this happened in a richer neighborhood, a richer town, let's say a bigger neighborhood, would it have been cleaned up a lot faster?
Sir, I'm going to tell you that we really never had an accident like this in my career. Okay? So.
Norfolk Southern also telling the audience they've had no talks about helping relocate families.
I don't have the means to leave, and it sickens my heart every night that I have to lay down and think that I'm laying my boys down in a poisonous atmosphere.
We talked to parents like Candace DeSanzo, who wasn't satisfied with officials' answers.
It comes to a point where it crosses a line of negligence and incompetence to where it's criminal.
And Zach Chamberlain, who quit working after not feeling well on the job. He doesn't know what his family should do.
Like a shepherd wouldn't raise a sheep in a contaminated area, and I don't want to raise my family in a contaminated area. You know, I want to take them to where they're healthy and can thrive.
But tensions also grew high between East Palestine Mayor Trent Conaway and residents blaming him for not returning their calls.
We're doing the best we can here. Okay. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I tried to keep my cool and now I've lost it, and I apologize. I'm a part-time mayor. I have to feed my family too.
So a lot of tensions there, obviously, a lot of anger. You know, the news that there was another derailment, they're saying not one that had hazardous materials, actually makes sense given what Secretary Pete Buttigieg has said. You know, he said, well, there are 1,000 derailments every year, so I guess it's about time for another one if that really is the case, that we just allow that to happen, and that's kind of considered business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so heartbreaking to see these people having to contend with their futures, you know, the symptoms they're experiencing, the fact that their homes are now worth so much less than they were a month ago, the just devastation in this small town community. And I just have to say, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's such a shame that this has gotten politicized, right? You hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if we did not have such a politically polarized environment, would anyone have cared at all about this community? Would anyone have given them any airtime whatsoever if they weren't getting airtime on Fox News? Yes, as part of a way of ragging on Democrats and the left for things that, you know, I think they deserve to be, right? But in a way, that's what I keep thinking about when I see this, which is that, you know, yes, our political polarization can end up hurting people, but also it can end up giving attention to people who clearly deserve it. And to their credit, people like Breonna, people like Nina Turner have been out there front and center saying these people deserve to be heard. But I'm not sure that it would have gone much further beyond that. I'm not sure that we would have gotten that, you know, quasi-apology from Mayor Pete Buttigieg, you know, if there hadn't been such an uproar from the right who now see people like this as their base.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Conservative media, I think, is certainly paying attention to this for the reasons you outlined. You know, that actually shows the benefits to the fractured media ecosystem. There are benefits. We only talk about, well, we talk about the benefits of them, but the mainstream media is always talking about, you know, the downsides that now, you know, everyone, you can't keep people on message because you can't control what the message is the way you used to, you know, before the rise of alternative news sites, before Fox News, before social media really, you know, open the doors to everyone being able to say and report and do what they want in terms of the media and communications. You know, the mainstream media hates that environment, but it like you said, it has downsides too, that we're a lot more at each other's throats, I think, and a lot more tense and fired up, and that can be a barrier to progress or to policy working things out. But as you said, it does lend itself toward attention actually being paid to issues like this. I totally agree with you. I don't think we would have seen much at all or any national coverage of this without the current, so-called unhealthy media ecosystem. But Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has gone on the offensive, dealing with backlash to his response to the derailments, directly calling out Tucker Carlson and former President Trump in an interview with CNN yesterday.
Buttigieg is now hitting back, telling CNN it's really rich to see some of these folks, the former president, these Fox hosts who are literally lifelong card-carrying members of the East Coast elite who wouldn't know their way around a TJ Maxx if their life depended on it, to be presenting themselves as if they genuinely care about the forgotten middle of the country. You think Tucker Carlson knows the difference between TJ Maxx and Kohl's?
And people make that accusation against Tucker all the time, but he has the perfect response to it. Like, he will say, when he's called out, they say, but you're an elite, you went to prep school, you go through his history, you go, yes, no, exactly. I've never claimed to not be part of the elite. I understand, because I've been around the elite, how they neglect or don't care or don't understand the working class perspective. And Donald Trump actually, to some extent, does that as well. So it's not at all the gotcha, I don't think, that people like Buttigieg think it is whenever they bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, I shop at both Kohl's and TJ Maxx, and I couldn't tell you what the difference is between them. I mean, they're both a place where you get a great bargain. I don't know what he's talking about there. This move to attack by ad hominem people who are making good criticisms of your terrible job that you're doing, it's just the lowest form of discourse. And I totally agree with you. Look, I wrote a whole book about how you have to basically be part of the elites in order to be in journalism. Great. So all the journalists are part of the elites. Let's get that out of the way. Once you're in that position, you have two choices. You could spend your time as a member of the elite, supporting and defending power and defending other powerful elites, or you can spend your position and your time and your energies in that position of privilege, speaking up for people who don't have it. And it seems to me that the left is enraged that people with privilege would choose to use that privilege in order to speak up on behalf of the people who never get a saying because they didn't have the same opportunities, right? You have those opportunities. You could either choose to only benefit yourself, which is what the vast majority of leftism is today, is just defending the top 20%, or you can choose to use that privilege and power to speak up on behalf of people who don't have that same privilege and power. And that is 100% what you see constantly on Fox News. And they can't stand it because that's not what they're doing, what they're using their privilege for. So I agree with you. It's such a weird, lame ad hominem. People like, J.D. Vance, very privileged person. Senator Josh Hawley, very privileged person, very highly educated, who have put in the work to try to understand their base and understand what people who did not have access to those same privileges need and want, and to represent those people in a way that their privilege has enabled them to do. And people use this weird ad hominem, oh, you're so privileged, you're an elite, you have this education. Nobody's denying that,
Yeah, and journalism is the most saturated with institutional elitism and everyone, nepo babies. Everyone is a nepo baby. Everyone is some former senator or whatever's child or grandchild in our industry. I don't know about you, Batya, but I don't know if the Ungar-Sargons were very influential.
No journalist in my background, but
me neither.
I definitely there was a time when I thought, I don't know how I can become a journalist. I'm not going to sit there and do unpaid internships. That was not in the cards for me. I did one for 3 months and was like, okay, I'm tapped out. It's just ridiculous. But I think you should give kudos to people who have made it into this industry, and you choose to use their position of privilege and power to speak up on behalf of people who don't have it. And instead, what you have is there was a front page article in the New York Times this weekend, I believe, about Black equestrians whose horse riding helmets don't fit. And it's can you think of a more privileged problem to have. Like, that's who the left is obsessed with helping. And it was very funny, even in the Chris Rock special, I don't know if you watched it, but, you know, he was joking about how privileged his daughters were, how they're horse riders and fencers. And, you know, like, to talk about that without acknowledging that, like, this is, you know, these are like the hallmarks of like extreme privilege in this country, you know, but that is who their heart beats for, you know, the black equestrian whose helmet doesn't fit. And meanwhile, East Palestine is, you know, the people who you're supposed to have utmost contempt for.
Well, you're on a tear today, Batya, so we're going to take a brief break and come back with your radar. That's up next. You don't want to miss it.